It was a chilly autumn morning in the small town of Willow Creek, the kind of town where everyone knew each other's routines, but not always their stories. Outside Maple and Cream Café, a familiar figure sat quietly every morning on the same bench by the window. A scruffy-looking man in a faded coat, his beard peppered with gray, sketching in an old, weathered notebook. Most people hurried past him, eyes down, coffee in hand, pretending not to see. But Lena Carter noticed him. Every single day. Lena, the cafe manager, was the kind of woman who always tried to smile, even when her world felt like it was falling apart. After a painful divorce and too many sleepless nights wondering where her life went wrong, she'd poured herself into running the cafe, her only safe place. That morning, one of her young employees whispered, "Lena, that homeless guy's out there again. He's making customers uncomfortable. Maybe we should ask him to leave." Lena looked through the foggy window. The man wasn't bothering anyone. He was there, drawing quietly with an expression that looked almost peaceful. She sighed. "No," she said gently. "He's not hurting anyone. Let him be." Still, she couldn't ignore the feeling that there was something familiar about him, something in the way he hunched over his sketchbook, lost in thought. Later that afternoon, she stepped outside with a cup of coffee and a small brown bag of leftover pastries. "Hey," she said softly, holding them out. "You look like you could use something warm." The man looked up slowly. His eyes, tired but kind, met hers. "Thank you," he said, his voice quiet, almost hesitant. "You don't have to do that." Lena smiled faintly. "Maybe not. But I want to." He nodded, accepting the cup with both hands, almost reverently, as if it were something precious. That day, for the first time, he smiled. And Lena realized something. Sometimes, the smallest kindness could break through years of silence. But what Lena didn't know was that this quiet stranger wasn't just another man down on his luck. He carried a story, one that would soon change her life forever. And as the leaves fell around them, fate was already writing the next chapter. Lena thought she was just helping a homeless man. But soon she'd discover he was the one helping her, in ways she never imagined. Days turned into weeks, and the man outside the cafe became a quiet part of the morning routine. Rain or shine, he was there, sitting on that same bench with his notebook, sketching in silence. Lena learned his name one day when she brought him another cup of coffee. He looked up and said softly, "Ethan, my name's Ethan Miles." From then on, they'd exchange small talk. Never too personal, just gentle conversations about the weather, or the people passing by, or how autumn in Willow Creek seemed to paint the town in gold. Sometimes, Lena would catch herself wondering who he used to be. There was something refined in the way he spoke, something that didn't match the worn clothes or the rough hands. And when he talked about art, his words carried the weight of someone who once lived for it. One rainy evening, Lena was closing up the cafe when she saw Ethan outside again, this time standing in the downpour. Across the street, an elderly woman was struggling with her grocery bags, the wind whipping her scarf away. Without a second thought, Ethan ran to help her, covering her head with his jacket and walking her across, soaked to the bone. Lena stood by the window, heart aching. Most people saw a homeless man, but she saw goodness. The kind that doesn't fade, even when life beats you down. Later, as Ethan came by to take shelter under the cafe awning, Lena handed him a towel and said, "You didn't have to do that, you know. You're freezing." He smiled faintly. Sometimes, doing the right thing is the only thing that makes you feel human again. That line stayed with her. That night, as she locked up, she couldn't shake the thought, what happened to this man? What broke him so deeply that he ended up here? And as the lights of the cafe dimmed, a small child's laughter echoed from across the street, the first spark of a connection that would soon reveal everything. Lena wasn't the only one who saw the kindness in Ethan. A little girl named Maya was about to uncover something that would leave everyone speechless. It was a bright Saturday morning when Maya, a cheerful 8-year-old who often played outside the cafe while her mom worked next door, noticed Ethan sketching. "What drawing?" she asked, peering curiously over his shoulder. Ethan smiled softly. "Just the world as I see it." Maya grinned. "Can I see?" After a moment's hesitation, he handed her the worn sketchbook. Inside were pages filled with breathtaking pencil drawings, cityscapes, portraits, nature scenes, each one detailed and full of emotion. But as Maya flipped through, her eyes widened. There, on one of the pages, was a sketch of Lena, drawn with haunting precision. When Lena came outside a few minutes later, Maya ran up holding the book. "Miss Lena. He drew you." Lena froze. She took the book, her breath catching in her throat. It was her, every detail, from the tired smile she wore to the faint sadness behind her eyes. "Ethan, why did you draw me?" she asked softly. He looked down, guilt flickering in his expression. "I'm sorry," he said. "You just remind me of someone I once knew. Someone I failed to protect." The tone in his voice was heavy, cracked with something deeper, grief. Lena felt a pang of empathy. "Was she your wife?" she asked gently. Ethan hesitated. "No, my daughter." The air fell silent between them. Lena didn't press further. She could see he was fighting a war inside, one that words couldn't heal. Later that night, as Lena sat alone in the cafe, she couldn't stop thinking about that sketch, or those words. Someone I failed to protect. What could have happened to him? And why did his sadness feel so personal? Lena wouldn't have to wonder for long. Because soon, someone would walk into the cafe, a man who knew Ethan's past better than anyone else. The next morning, the bell above the cafe door jingled, and in walked Officer Daniels, a familiar face around town. He ordered his usual black coffee, but his eyes weren't on the menu. They were fixed on Ethan, sitting quietly by the window. After a few moments, he leaned toward Lena and spoke quietly. "You've been talking to that man outside, haven't you?" Lena frowned, sensing something serious in his tone. "Yes. His name's Ethan. Do you know him?" Officer Daniels nodded slowly. "Yeah, I do." He paused, then sighed. Ethan Miles wasn't always homeless. A few years ago, he was one of the top architects in the state. Designed half the buildings in this town, including this cafe. Lena blinked. "What?" "He designed this cafe." Daniels nodded again. "He had a wife and a little girl. Sweet family. But one night, they were hit by a drunk driver. He was supposed to drive them home that night, but he got caught up working late. By the time he got to the hospital, it was too late." Lena's chest tightened. She glanced at Ethan outside, staring down at his sketchbook, unaware of the conversation happening inside. "He blamed himself," Daniels continued softly. "He just disappeared after the funeral. Sold his house, left everything behind. No one's heard from him since." The truth hit Lena like a wave. All the sadness in Ethan's eyes, all the hesitation in his voice, it suddenly made sense. Later that day, as she watched him share his sandwich with Maya, something shifted in Lena. She realized Ethan wasn't just surviving, he was trying to find pieces of himself through kindness. And when Maya laughed, calling him Mr. Artist, for the first time, Ethan laughed too. A quiet, broken laugh, but it was a start. Lena knew she couldn't change Ethan's past. But maybe, she could help him find a reason to live again. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Ethan, his story, his loss, and the way people looked right through him. She wanted to help, but she didn't want to pity him. The next morning, she came up with an idea. She called Officer Daniels, Maya's mother, and a few local artists. Together, they organized a small art showcase at the cafe, a chance for Ethan to share his work, to be seen again not as the homeless man, but as Ethan Miles, the artist. At first, Ethan refused. "Lena, no one wants to see my art. People don't care about a man like me." But Lena smiled gently. "You're wrong. People just forgot how to look. Let's remind them." When the night of the event arrived, the cafe glowed with warm lights and laughter. Local families filled the room, admiring Ethan's sketches, scenes of loss and beauty, pain and healing. There were tears, applause. Even strangers came up to thank him for his work. Ethan stood in the corner, overwhelmed. When Lena walked up, he whispered, "You gave me back something I thought I'd lost, hope." Lena smiled, eyes glistening. "You gave it to yourself, Ethan. I just opened the door." That night, for the first time in years, Ethan slept in a real bed, in the small shelter Officer Daniels arranged for him. And as he looked out the window, watching the cafe lights fade in the distance, a quiet peace washed over him. But his story wasn't done yet. There was still one more secret waiting, one that tied him and Lena together in ways neither could have imagined. Just when Lena thought she understood everything about Ethan, he left behind something that would change how she saw her own life forever. A week later, Ethan came to the cafe one last time. He looked healthier, clearer eyes, a small spark of life back in them. "I'm leaving tomorrow," he told Lena. "There's a rehabilitation program upstate that Officer Daniels helped me find. I think it's time I try again." Lena smiled, proud but sad. "You'll do great, Ethan." Before he left, he handed her an old envelope. "I want you to have this. You'll understand soon." After he walked away, Lena opened it. Inside was a faded newspaper clipping. "Architect's final project brings hope to Willow Creek. Ethan Miles designs new community cafe." Her eyes widened. Beneath the article was a handwritten note. "This cafe was the last thing I built before I lost everything. Maybe that's why I was drawn back here, to remember that beauty can rise even after ruin. Thank you for reminding me." Lena sat down slowly, looking around at the warm walls, the sunlight through the window, the laughter of customers, all made possible by the man everyone ignored. Her heart swelled with emotion. It wasn't chance that brought him to her cafe, it was fate. Months passed, but Ethan's story didn't end there. His legacy would live on. In a sketch, a wall, and the kindness that changed an entire town. Months later, Lena stood behind the cafe counter, smiling as the morning crowd filled the room. On the wall behind her hung a framed sketch, Ethan's drawing of her, the very first one he ever made. Below it, a small plaque read, "Never judge someone by the chapter you walk in on." Maya often came by after school, telling new customers stories about Mr. Artist, the man who used to sit outside. And Lena would smile every time, knowing his spirit still lived in the heart of the cafe. The community had changed too. People started greeting the homeless by name, donating to the local shelter, and volunteering at the art center Lena helped reopen, all because one woman decided to show kindness instead of judgment. And every fall, on the anniversary of the art show, Lena would light a single candle by the window where Ethan used to sit. As she gazed outside, she whispered, "Thank you, Ethan, for reminding me that sometimes, the people who seem lost are the ones who guide us home." Everyone carries invisible battles. One act of kindness can heal more than you'll ever know. And no matter how broken someone looks, they are never beyond redemption. Because compassion, not judgment, is what truly changes the world. Moral of this story: everyone you meet is fighting a battle you can't see. Some people carry their pain in silence, behind quiet smiles and tired eyes. Ethan wasn't just a homeless man. He was a broken soul trying to find meaning again, and all it took was one act of kindness to change everything. Never judge someone by their appearance, or by the chapter you walk in on. Because sometimes, the person you help might be the one who helps you find yourself. Compassion costs nothing, but it can heal everything. If this story touched your heart, don't just scroll past it, share it. Let it remind someone that kindness still exists, and that hope can begin again. Subscribe to the Cherished Stories channel for more powerful, real-life stories that prove every small act of goodness can change a life. And remember, we're not just telling stories. We're changing lives.